Is SpongeBob a lesbian? Throughout the show, there have been obvious times where I've questioned myself on SpongeBob's sexuality, but it wasn't until I was shared this tweet from 2020 from Nickelodeon themselves. Nickelodeon celebrated Pride Month by announcing that SpongeBob SquarePants is gay. The tweet included photos of 3 characters who are obviously gay, like Korra from Avatar, this dude from Henry Danger, which I've never seen, and for some reason, SpongeBob. This is what they said: celebrating Pride with the LGBTQ+ community and their allies this and every month. Now, apparently this dude from Henry Danger, in real life, he was a woman who transitioned into a man. And it's been kind of an open secret that Korra is bi. Korra had relationships with both Mako and Asami, showing her attraction to multiple genders. And the creators of the show have actually already confirmed it. Now, companies release statements for Pride Month all the time. Like, it's not new. Every company does it. But what was definitely different was including a picture of my boy SpongeBob with a rainbow-like filter. So this made me wonder, is SpongeBob SquarePants gay? SpongeBob does show that more often than not, he's the one taking on motherly roles. For instance, there's this one episode where SpongeBob and Patrick find a baby scallop and decide to raise it together.
Totally helpless! It looks like he can't even fly yet.
With SpongeBob playing as the mom and Patrick as the dad. At first, it's all fun and games, but then Patrick claims he has to go to work, leaving SpongeBob to handle all the baby duties alone. Patrick promises to help when he gets home.
I'll give you a break tonight when I get home. Don't you two stop being adorable.
But he just ends up watching TV every night, leaving SpongeBob exhausted and frustrated. Now, historically, men were hunters and gatherers while women stayed closer to the home, managing the household and just caring for the child. So it's really interesting. Like, why would the writers choose to put SpongeBob in the motherly role? They even go as far as SpongeBob finally confronting Patrick, showing him all the dirty diapers to highlight how much work he's been doing. This is very similar to the classic cliche of how the dad watches football all day while the mom is cooking. But this isn't even the only time we see SpongeBob in a nurturing motherly role. See, I think the writers just seem to enjoy exploring this aspect of his character, showing him taking on responsibilities and caring for others in a way that's often associated with traditional female roles. For example, there's another episode that highlights this even further. When SpongeBob and Patrick were playing leapfrog, they end up crashing into a bush. They actually destroy the bush and find a worm living there, which they name Mr. Wormsley. SpongeBob decides to take Mr. Wormsley home, but Gary and Mr. Wormsley immediately start fighting. The next morning, SpongeBob finds out that Mr. Wormsley is actually a Mrs. Wormsley because she gives birth to a bunch of baby worms. Now, SpongeBob is just left to take care of all the baby worms. He tries to find a home for them, but Squidward, Mrs. Puff, and Larry all refuse them in these like chaotic and funny ways. Finally, Mr. Crab realizes that the worms are rare and valuable. So obviously, he decides to help SpongeBob by selling the baby worms to the people of Bikini Bottom. Now, my first job fresh out of high school was in construction. One day, one of my coworkers fell 2 stories while working on the side of a building. Luckily, he survived, but not without some serious injuries. Since we were both fresh out of high school with no job experience and even less knowing and understanding our rights as workers, my friend never saw any sort of compensation since the owner of the company assured him he was gonna take care of him. Now, he did in fact pay for his medical bills, but in hindsight, my friend should have been compensated way beyond that. This is why I'm happy to have the opportunity to work with the very first sponsor of the channel, the law firm of Morgan & Morgan. Being the largest injury law firm in the United States, they have the manpower, legal expertise, and years of experience dealing with any case. Literally over 3 million people, like you call them, every year in their time of need. Morgan & Morgan's records of success is long, but these are just some of the recent verdicts where they have won millions for customers. Like Yvette Torres, she was hit by a truck in November 2021, and Morgan & Morgan attorneys rejected a 2.3 pretrial offer, but winning 11.9 at trial. They will fight to get you the best possible offer if you become their client. You can submit a claim in less than 2 minutes by answering just a few questions on their website, and one of the representatives would reach out by phone. Thanks again, Morgan & Morgan, for sponsoring today's video. You can check the link in the description. Okay, so it's pretty clear that SpongeBob does more often than not take on female roles, and might be a lesbian. But have we ever seen SpongeBob in love? We all know Sandy has always been a potential love interest for him, which I want to talk about that more in a future video, but it's honestly like bro has never really been in love. And I know you might be thinking that the show doesn't want to focus on showing romantic stuff, but even that's not true. In the episode Krusty Love, Mr. Krabs catches sight of Mrs. Puff at the Krusty Krab and instantly falls in love.
Scrumptious, curvy cutie.
And obviously this leads to whole other episodes where we see them like going on dates and trying to hide from people. Dude, even someone as hateful as Squidward has fell in love. In Love That Squid, Squidward is like literally sad about being single until he meets a new customer, Squilvia. And my boy Squidward starts to simp and falls in love with her. Now, too nervous to ask her out, SpongeBob helps set up a date and even runs a hilarious practice day at his house. Which, by the way, anybody else could have done this, but no, SpongeBob had to be the one to dress up like a girl and take on that girl role. Now, despite the practice going horribly wrong, Squilvia actually appreciates Squidward's true self when she sees him frustrated and honest. They end up going on a road date with Squidward thanking SpongeBob for his help. Even Plankton is married to someone, even if it happens to be a computer, which SpongeBob actually helped too at one point with an anniversary gift. So it's clear SpongeBob has basically matched everyone in the show, but no one has been able to match him with anyone. The closest relationship SpongeBob's ever had was with a Krabby Patty. And I'm not even joking. SpongeBob makes this super perfect Krabby Patty at work, and he just can't bring himself to serve it to a customer because it's so beautiful. He ends up falling in love with the patty. Like, seriously head over heels for it. He names it, of course, Patty, and treats it like a romantic partner. SpongeBob takes Patty everywhere, doing all these romantic activities like taking her to the park, having candlelit dinners, and even singing a love song to her. You can really see how much SpongeBob adores this Krabby Patty. But as you might guess, things start to go wrong, and since it is a piece of food, Patty begins to spoil and get really gross. SpongeBob tries to ignore it at first, but eventually it gets so bad that he can't deny it anymore. He realizes he has to let it go. And in the end, after some serious emotional moments, SpongeBob finally says goodbye to Patty and gives her a proper send-off. Like, this was it. This was the only episode that SpongeBob was in a relationship, if you can even call it that. And even then, bro, like, the episode portrayed SpongeBob's relationship with the Krabby Patty as a metaphor of an unhealthy romantic relationship. Initially, everything is perfect, symbolizing the honeymoon phase where everything seems wonderful. However, as time passes and the patty starts to spoil, it represents how a relationship can turn sour. The deterioration of the patty and SpongeBob's reluctance to let go illustrates how clinging to an unhealthy relationship can be really harmful. Ultimately, SpongeBob's decision to say goodbye to the spoiled patty signifies the necessity of letting something go that's no longer good for you, even if it was once cherished. So yeah, like I said, it's really interesting how the show hasn't gave SpongeBob an actual love interest when everyone else has. So I did a little research and I actually found something pretty crazy. In 2005, the creator of the show, Steven Hillenburg, sat down for an interview with People magazine talking about SpongeBob's sexuality. And to everyone's surprise, he said that SpongeBob is actually asexual. Asexuality, often just called ace, is a sexual orientation where a person doesn't experience sexual attraction. It's like while some people might feel a strong pull or desire to be sexually intimate with others, asexual people typically don't have that kind of attraction. Now, it is important to know that being asexual doesn't mean someone can't have romantic feelings or be in a relationship. Many ace do have romantic attractions and can fall in love, have crushes, and enjoy romantic relationships. But overall, asexuality is just a spectrum, and it's really about what someone feels personally. But Hillenburg saying SpongeBob is asexual actually makes a lot of sense considering he's a marine biologist. See, first off, many sponges are hermaphrodites. This means they have both female and male reproductive organs, allowing them to produce both eggs and sperm. Bro, I know, it's freaking weird, even though they don't usually do it at the same time. But yeah, they just release sperm into the water, which is then captured by another sponge that's ready to act as the female, fertilizing its eggs internally. This fertilization happens inside the sponge, which is eventually released into the water to settle and grow into new sponges. So, is SpongeBob gay? Is SpongeBob a lesbian? No. But by being asexual and a hermaphrodite, he is part of the LGBTQ+ community. The LGBTQ+ acronym stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer questioning, with the plus sign representing other sexual orientations and gender identities that don't fall into the first 5 letters. So when you really think about it, Nickelodeon's tweet was just acknowledging that SpongeBob fits under the broad, diverse umbrella of LGBTQ+ identities.